Thank you for staying. What better way to start off your day than with Sweetie Abochi, shining, brightening up your day, and with yours truly, well, taking it from there. My name is Benjamin Akakwa. Welcome on the News Review. Time now for us to get into the papers. But before we do, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic helping us to bring you this segment every weekday. They're offering you, if you're a man, prostate screening for free. If you're a woman, fertility screening for free. I've told you time without number about the different issues that could affect your prostate and your fertility as a woman. I mean, sometimes when we talk about fertility issues, men also think, yes, you're also in there. You could be affected by fertility issues. So make your way to Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They'll grant you screening in these areas for free. And here are their branches. Here in Accra, Spintex, opposite the Shell signboard. Kumasi, Chronomabwe here behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrady, Anaje State. Tema, Community 22. Techiman Hanswa and Esiaman Zama. Their call lines are 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But here we are at the very start, the very inception of our news review for this morning. Dr. Wisdom Kofi Dogbe is a financial analyst. He joins the conversation from far, far away. I'll not mention where he is. Doc, good morning. I think you'd have to unmute, Doc.
I am not on mute. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Is it morning where you are? You don't need to mention where you are. Sometimes it gets awkward when I say good morning. Is it dawn where you are?
It is morning, yes. It is 1:35 a.m.
1:35 a.m. All right.
Yeah.
Well, here we go. So a number of things have happened since the last time we had an interaction. There's been the inauguration or opening of the Central Oil refinery. I've had my own crucial issues with that because there's store sitting there like a rust bucket. It's going waste, yet we're commissioning under the guise, so to speak. And you know me, I speak my mind. I will not sugarcoat it, of 1D1F, a Chinese factory. I have nothing against the Chinese, but you have your own tour there. And there are so many dynamics. The employees these people are getting, purportedly a chunk of them are coming from Tor. I hear some things, articles are being pilfered, loaned from Tor to this entity by people working there. And of course, looking at its production levels, it basically means we are killing off Tor. There's the Black Stars and their performance. The Ivorians have found a way of working things out. They sacked their coach mid through the tournament, and they are making progress. In fact, only yesterday they were able to get past Senegal. Our Black Stars are back home. I'm not blaming anybody. I feel there are problems, cracks with the team because, look, the day are you, when Iñaki Williams left, the minute he left, went to Athletic Club, he scored. The day are you scored a brace, was it yesterday or 2 days ago? And he was asking, was I the problem? I don't feel the problems were general, but we target certain people and make it appear they were the major problems. They are scoring elsewhere. Why couldn't we do it here? And of course, there are the tax issues. I don't know, but I was just laying a broad foundation for you. In some 2 minutes, what would you like to talk about before we get into the papers, Doc?
Thank you once again for having me, Ben. There are a lot of issues going on, right? But this whole issue of the new taxes, right, including the VAT on electricity, it is one item that has caught my attention. And I will start by saying that let the poor breathe. You see, our government needs money. And so citizens are getting taxed to raise money to run the government. And yes, taxes play a very essential role in financing government expenditure. And I'm not sure that any government can run without taxes, right? But it gets to a point, Ben, overtaxation has adverse effects on the economy and on the individual citizen. And Ghana is at that point where numerous taxes will begin to have adverse impact on the standard of living, especially for the poor, low-income earners, and pensioners in the country. Then I understand that these things require negotiation and dialogue with the government to resolve. But it gets to a point where it becomes too much. And the people who gave the government the mandate to govern, that is the average Ghanaian, it gets to a point where they just say enough is enough, we won't pay. And that is why I tend to understand the position of the TUC issuing an ultimatum to the government to rescind their decision to impose that 15% VAT on electricity. Now, there seems to be a complete lack of proper coordination among government agencies involved in implementing some of these new taxes.
Right.
I was totally surprised to hear comments from the ECG managing director that implies that, ECG may not have been consulted, and it will be very challenging for them to implement this new tax policy. I learned from his comments that from the ECG boss comment that because some of these consumers use prepaid meters and others use postpaid, it is close to impossible, right, to implement this new tax equitably. And this also tells us that not much thought, has been put into implementing the new directive. And I think government needs to get back to the drawing board to reassess this one. But there is the economic burden that government needs to consider here. The people are already financially stressed due to the current state of the economy. In fact, I read on my joint news about submission from the executive director of Africa Center for Energy Policy on this issue. And I agree with him that timing is not right for this tax. People are suffering, right? Then on top of that, you are adding vehicle income tax, tax on lottery winnings, VAT on electricity, and so on. All of these, it will trickle down to the final consumer. This is just too much additional burden on individuals and businesses. If the government doesn't manage this well, it can have rather adverse effect on the economy by reducing the disposable income available for consumer spending and investment. Then we could see reduced business profitability due to all these new taxes. That would impede the ability of the businesses to expand and to create jobs and contribute to economic development. Already the nation is dealing with high inflation. It's reduced, I understand that, but it's still high. So all these new taxes could worsen the inflationary pressure on the economy. Think about it this way. When taxes are imposed on goods and services, businesses most likely pass that increased cost, from electricity bill, for example, here to the consumer through higher prices. And this leads to a rise in the overall price level, corroding the purchasing power of individuals and subsequently diminishing the standard of living. Then too many taxes can also discourage entrepreneurship and innovation as well, which are key elements of economic prosperity. So higher taxes on these businesses, that can reduce the incentives for individuals to take risk and invest in new opportunities. The resultant effect is that innovation can suffer, job creation will be limited, and economic dynamism will be hindered. And all of these new taxes, for the most part, it disproportionately affects low-income households and pensioners and families, as I mentioned earlier. And ironically, it is that demographics that need that economic break, especially at this time, and not to worsen their plight with new and somewhat designer taxes. It is also not
you call them what? Designer taxes.
Designer taxes, right?
I see.
But see, it is also not a walk in the park for the stakeholders like ECG and other businesses to implement these new taxes. It often requires some kind of accounting system changes, additional documentation, and even hiring professionals.
But that shouldn't be. I mean, you operate in financial circles. That shouldn't be too difficult to execute, right? I mean, I am not for this add-on of taxes, but I'm saying if push comes to shove, there should be ways of doing this.
They would always find a way around it. But think about it this way. Electricity, for example, is a basic necessity that folks use. So placing new taxes on it is tantamount to saying that I'm the government. I don't care about your plight. And this is an undue burden on those who are already financially vulnerable. Right. I think these types of taxes can be repressive in nature and can further worsen income inequality as the burden of this taxation falls on this low-income household. So I hope that the government proceeds cautiously as they introduce all these new taxes, taking into account the adverse impact on the people and the businesses.
Well, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. I was just checking, moving away a bit because I'm still bleeding from the loss of the Black Stars. I didn't let my heart go into it so much this time, but I was hoping, no matter how things are going as a Ghanaian, you always want, you have this thing. And look, like it or not, even when the times are bad economically and all that, when the Black Stars win, everyone is in a good mood all of a sudden. I was just checking. I had followed the Ivory Coast Mauritania bit this morning, just checking out the scores. And here's Cape Verde, the same team that won our group, the same team that beat Ghana. They won against Mauritania yesterday, and they are progressing at our expense. Egypt's taken the tumble out, and Cape Verde is there. We wish them the best. I mean, they say, if you can't beat them, join them, right? So we'll support them to move forward. They've got things right, and we haven't. But let's get into the papers now and check out some of what is happening. The Daily Graphic newspaper, Major Mahama murder, 12 jailed for life, 2 freed. Then there's ensuring sustainability. It's time to review free SHS, varsity dawn to government. I do not know. I can't comprehend for the life of me why a review of free SHS has become something that people literally should beg for, or I don't get it, because, someone says review, another, let's forget the politics. Let's forget about former President Mahama. How many people have not said in the past, from different sides of our political spectrum, let's have a proper review? Then you have a sector minister come and talk about, we don't need a review. What was the word he used again? I'll try and remember, because it sounded so, I don't know. But those are some of the things. And sometimes taking off our political lenses so we can look at these things critically and deal with them is the issue. Dismiss fake election year prophecies. Reverend Dr. Hiagbe cautions citizenry, and Bank of Ghana cuts policy rates. Better late than never, huh? Bafana gear up to face mighty Atlas Lions. Morocco, we all remember their exploits from the World Cup, and they're going to be facing Bafana. So let's get into a few of those stories. Almost 7 years after the murder of Major Maxwell Adam Mahama, a 7-member jury yesterday returned a unanimous verdict of guilty against the former assembly member and 11 others at the High Court in Accra, bringing justice to his close relatives. The former assembly member at Dentraboise in the Central Region, William Ba, was found guilty on the charge of abetment of murder, while Bernard Asamoah, Kofi Nyame, Akwesi Ba, Kwame Tufor, Joseph Apia Kubi, Michael Enim, Akwesi Asante, Charles Quening, Emmanuel Beidu, John Boisi, and Kwejo Anima were found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder. The jury also returned a guilty verdict on the charge of murder against Asamoah, Nyame, Ba, Tufor, Kubi, Enim, Asante, and Quening. 2 others, Bismarck Donko and Bismarck Abanga, who stood trial alongside the 12, were, however, acquitted and discharged after the jury returned a verdict of not guilty to the charge of conspiracy to commit murder. All 12 were sentenced to life imprisonment due to the amendment to the Criminal Offences Act 1960 Act 29, which changed the punishment for murder from death to life imprisonment. All right. And then I'll do page 13, 2 stories there, and come to you before we go on the international front. Reverend Dr. Hiagbe says, Ghanaians have been advised against allowing themselves to be manipulated by fake prophecies in choosing political leaders as the country prepares for the 2024 general elections. Those prophecies were self-made from persons who wanted to deceive the citizenry to believe that God had chosen certain leaders for the country. The rector of Global Theological Seminary, Reverend Dr. Komi A. Hiagbe, stated. Speaking to the Daily Graphic in an interview on the effect of the prophecies on the nation, especially during elections, the rector said it was worrying to see certain people claiming to be men of God giving contradictory prophecies during elections, which sometimes affected the sense of judgment of the congregants in making their choices. And finally, Doc, It's time to review free SHS, ensuring sustainability, varsity done to government. A former pro-vice chancellor of the University of Cape Coast, Professor George Kweku Toku Odro, has urged the government to take immediate steps to review the free SHS policy through stakeholder engagement. He said the, quote, very commendable free SHS policy must be evaluated through stakeholder dialogue to ensure sustainability. So there you have it. I don't know whether in the past you followed the issue of Major Mahama, who was brutally killed in Dentraboise in the central region. Then there's review free SHS and then do away with fake prophecies. Any reactions?
First of all, I will mention that on the fake prophecy, two things. The Holy Scripture says, test every spirit. And the second one, it says, by their fruit
you shall know them. I just knew you'd go there. Right.
But to be honest, I'm very saddened about this whole issue with Major Mahama. This was an unfortunate situation that ended the life of a fine soldier, right? With this verdict, I believe justice has prevailed, and hopefully the family of Major Mahama will now find some closure. It's unfortunate, but this should be a learning moment for the nation, that Ghana is a land of law and order. Yes, you can argue whether justice is carried out fairly or not, but that doesn't change the fact that we are a nation of order, and mob justice should be a thing of the past. You know, I don't recall the exact facts about the case, but if my memory serves me well, the soldier was lynched by a mob. And we, as a nation, we should do better, right, to promote the rule of law. We need to educate the public about the importance of the rule of law and the negative consequences of mob justice. The citizens everywhere in Ghana, including in rural areas, they should know what to do if they suspect anyone of criminal activity. And they have to have respect for legal processes and institutions, emphasizing that no individual or group has the right to take the law into their own hands. This ruling, I believe, sends that message very, very clearly. Now, in addition to a verdict like this, that sends a clear message to all citizens that the rule of law will be upheld, we also need to conduct public awareness campaigns to educate citizens about the dangers of mob justice and the importance of due process. And I'm glad that the media is covering this extensively, Ben, because it's an avenue of education. And of course, let's also leverage community forums and educational institutions to disseminate information on legal rights, procedures, and consequences of vigilante actions. And yes, justice eventually was served. And I understand that sometimes it takes a while to wrap up investigations and ensure the appropriate charges are brought. However, I also advocate for swift and fair justice, Ben. You know, when a crime is a bit fresh in the minds of the people and justice is delivered swiftly, that can serve as a greater deterrent against repetition of such heinous crimes. And we need to ensure that the justice system operates and delivers fairly and timely verdicts. Emphasis here is on timely, right? And so we need to address delays in the legal process, reduce backlogs, and hold accountable those who commit these mob actions. And then I also think we need to continue engaging the community and civil society organizations who work on human rights, conflict resolution, and advocacy. Communities and these organizations can collaborate more to build ties with law enforcement and educate community members on reporting suspected crimes to the authorities instead of taking the law into their own hands.
Right.
Actions have consequences, and those who committed this heinous crime will now pay for their deeds.
Interesting thoughts there. Let's take a quick look at some other stories on the international front, and then we can take it from there. This story has also been making the trends. Pope Francis, Africans are special case when it comes to LGBT blessings. That's according to the Pope. Dozens killed in regional dispute. And then Biden faces pressure to strike Iran after U.S. troops killed. Let me just leave you with those two stories and then we shall move on. Now, the killing of 3 U.S. troops and wounding of dozens more last Sunday by Iran-backed militants is piling political pressure on President Joe Biden to deal a blow directly against Iran, a move he's been reluctant to do out of fear of igniting a broader war. Biden's response options could range anywhere from targeting Iranian forces outside to even inside Iran, or opting for a more cautious retaliatory attack solely against the Iran-backed militants responsible, experts say. American forces in the Middle East have been attacked more than 150 times by Iran-backed forces in Iraq, Syria, Jordan, and off the coast of Yemen since the Israel-Hamas war erupted in October. Then, Pope Francis said in an interview published yesterday that Africans were a, quote, special case in the opposition of bishops and many other people on the continent to homosexuality. And we know that even here in Ghana, there are those who have stated, no, not here. No matter the tincture of the blessing, no. That's what he's referring to. But he said he was confident that except for Africans, critics of his decision to allow blessings for same-sex couples would eventually understand it. Blessings were allowed last month in a document called Fiducia Supplicans, which means supplicating trust, which has caused widespread debate in the Catholic Church, with particularly strong resistance coming from African bishops. Quoting Pope Francis, and that's how I'll end it, those who protest vehemently belong to small ideological groups, Francis told Italian newspaper La Stampa. A special case is Africans. For them, homosexuality is something bad. From a cultural point of view, they don't tolerate it. How do you respond to this? So 2 stories, attacks on Americans, Joe Biden in a tight position, and Pope Francis on Africans being a special case.
Pope Francis' story is a big one, right? So let me respond to the American soldiers killed in Jordan. But without a doubt, this is a heartbreaking story, right? And my thoughts and prayers are with the families of the soldiers who are fallen. You know, the sacrifices of the soldiers who participate in these high-risk operations, it cannot be overstated. They selflessly put themselves in harm's way to promote peace, stability, and the well-being of others in the Middle East region that is affected by the Israel-Hamas war that we all talk about these days. The dedication of these American soldiers and their bravery, it serves as a testament to their commitment to humanity and the pursuit of global harmony. So their death should not be in vain. It should remind us of the risk and the challenges faced by those who serve in these critical missions. Right. It also highlights the importance of acknowledging and appreciating their invaluable contribution. We must recognize that, right? The sacrifice they make far away from their loved ones. I'll take the politics out of this, but I can also say confidently that the U.S. will respond, right? One thing that I know for a fact is this death will not go unpunished. The U.S. will find the perpetrators and bring them to justice one way or the other.
Well, interesting times. Let's get into the Ghanaian Times newspaper now. Major Mahama murder case, 12 caged for life, 2 acquitted and discharged. We've brought you that story. Bank of Ghana reduces monetary policy rate. I'll get into that as well. There's GMET cautions Ghanaians about Harmattan-related diseases. And Chairman Wuntumi exonerated by KTC. The humble lion, right? Anyway, on the back page, committee search for Black Stars head coach. Committee set February 2 deadline for submission of applications. And DR Congo stun Egypt in shootout. There's also Morocco coach Regragui's ban lifted. All right, he's been pardoned. He had a 2-match suspension at the 2023 African Cup of Nations, and it has been lifted after an appeal. I think this is the tournament of the underdogs, the likes of Egypt, Ghana, all out, Cape Verde, countries like that in there. The Ivory Coast pipping Senegal. The Ivory Coast wasn't really fancied against Senegal. They have taken them out, at least for this tournament, though they are a juggernaut in the competition. But let's get into the stories there. I'll look at the 2 stories on page 9 and start with the one on page 8 first. So, GMET cautions Ghanaians about Harmattan-related diseases. The Ghana Meteorological Agency has advised Ghanaians to take cognizance of the health risks posed by the Harmattan, which has the ability to worsen allergies such as asthma. Now, it therefore cautioned the public to take precautionary measures to promote their well-being during the period. The agency explained that it was important to take a lot of water to remain hydrated and avoid setting fires on farms. It said due to the level of dust in the atmosphere, it would be necessary for people to wear masks. Then those two stories. The Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana has cut the monetary policy rate by 100 basis points, that is 1%, from 30% to 29% on the back of declining inflation and the country's economic recovery. The policy rate is the rate at which the Bank of Ghana lends to commercial banks in the country. Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, who disclosed this at the first MPC press conference in Accra yesterday, said the policy rate cut was in line with declining inflation. And the Kumasi Traditional Council has exonerated the Ashanti Regional Chairman of the New Patriotic Party, Bernard Intwi-Buesiako, popularly known as Chairman Wuntumi, of allegations that he had disrespected the Asantehene Otumfuose II. He was alleged to have made some disparaging remarks against the Asantehene during the vetting exercise of parliamentary aspirants of the party at Menchia South constituency. He was placed on the KTC's wanted list as a result of the incident and was summoned to appear before the council. However, he complied with the directive and appeared yesterday, and it goes on. But basically, there's been some pardon and some clearing of that situation. Any thoughts, reflections?
Yeah, I'll respond to the policy rate being cut. I missed this one in the news, but Ben, here's my 2 cents on why I think it makes economic sense to cut the policy rate at this time. First, because of a drop in inflation, right? Look, inflation is still high, but I sense some optimism to cut rates to encourage consumer spending and also lending. Lower interest rates, they make borrowing less expensive, which can help improve the spending in the economy. And I think that cutting rates could also help the economy, but a little challenge that I see off mind is cutting rates could discourage foreign investment here, right? Lower rates can make Ghana's currency less attractive to foreign investors. If Ghana's rates are lower, right, relative to other countries, it can discourage foreign investors to invest in the country's financial markets. And we need that investment. That said, the good side of this is this. With lower cost of borrowing, spending will be encouraged. Local businesses are able to borrow at lower interest rates, and that can help the economy more. One of the primary reasons for cutting policy rate is to stimulate economic growth. By reducing the policy rate, the Bank of Ghana aims to lower the borrowing cost for businesses and individuals. And as I mentioned, this encourages increased borrowing and spending, which can boost investment, consumption, and also overall economic activity. I also think that lowering the policy rate can also help ease the burden of unemployment a bit. By reducing borrowing costs, businesses are incentivized to invest in expansion and hiring. And that then can also lead to increased job creation and reduce unemployment rate. So cutting the policy rate, I believe, can be a good response to the financial challenges such as liquidity constraints in the economy. And so I believe that Bank of Ghana is aiming to encourage banks to lend more, easing access to credit and addressing the current financial instability in the economy.
All right. Other stories now, but a quick reaction I'd like to get into. I see a comment coming through. Gafaru Jantong Dabogshe. You say, good morning, monitoring. Thank you for doing the monitoring. But there's this comment, Felix John Entry. You say, if you score in a second division league and you ask this silly question, what should we do? The DIU does not deserve to be in the Black Stars. That's what he says. Felix, so I do not know, but just to run a few things by you, there was a time when the DIU was the toast of the Black Stars, scoring monumental goals in the AFCON. When we went to the finals, we rode on a lot of his effort. We did same with the World Cup. Even in that match, we drew with Germany. He scored, and I believe Asamoah Gyan scored. He's not captain for nothing. And let me also remind you that it's not a second division that he plays in. Le Havre is actually in Ligue 1, which is the premier division in France. At least when you send these messages through, I want you to get your facts right, because here we'll fact check you. You can have your beef against him. I do have my beef against him too. But I feel that sometimes we get cynical. It shouldn't be coincidence that Iñaki can leave, get there, is it the following day after, and score a goal when he's not fed the right balls and he can't score for the national. The national team problems are myriad. All of them, yes, contribute a little, but you can't blame it on one person. I don't think Dede meant that the ball should leave and come and hit his hand. Yet he leaves and he scores a brace for Le Havre, and you want to come and say, oh, he's the worst thing that has happened? I agree with, who was it? I don't know whether it was Fento or someone recently who said, you know what? Dede should do himself a favor and walk away from the Black Stars. Yeah, he's had his time, everything. He should walk away and let's see how things will go. Because I feel in this country, we like the blame game and just making it appear one person is the problem. It can't be. Both of them attacking, he's an attack-minded midfielder. He went and scored 2 goals, a brace. Iñaki went and scored. What are we not doing right in our Black Stars? The politics, the money, and everything. So if they had gone to the next round, the players were getting $30,000. Members of the technical bench are getting $60,000. Among all the other pot of issues. Let's not even go there. Anyway, so that's it with the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Sad issue, man kills father, inflicts cutlass wounds on mother and niece. That's another story in the papers. But let's do the Daily Guide newspaper. Election 2024, NPP presents 46 new candidates, and EC distances itself from Yendi primary declaration. I'm not looking at the other stories because we've already done them. So I'll go to pages 3 and 6. Now, the 9th Parliament of the 4th Republic of Ghana will be made up of new faces following the Saturday parliamentary primaries of the New Patriotic Party, which saw a flurry of parliamentary slots change hands. The Daily Guide seems to suggest that these new faces are necessarily going to win. We will not find out until December 2024. Anyway, official results declared by the EC at the constituency level indicated that 28 incumbent MPs lost their slots to represent the party again at this year's general election, paving the way for fresh limbs to take the field. Daily Guide, fresh limbs, B, not P, not limbs. Already, a total of 18 lawmakers of the MPP, including the majority leader, Osei Mensah Bonsu, and the first deputy speaker, Joseph Osei Wusu, did not seek re-election. This means some 46, quote, old guards will not be part of the candidates on the electoral ballot on December 7, 2024, and probably the next parliament to be sworn in on January 7, 2025, ahead of the swearing in of the president. And then, this story on page 6, yes. EC distances itself from Yendi primary declaration. So, in the northern region, Farouk Aliyu Mahama was declared winner of the parliamentary primary when the EC declined to declare the results due to the confusion surrounding the destroyed ballot papers. The third national vice chairman of the MPP, Alhaj Osman Masaudu, made the declaration in Yendi after a consultation with the regional and national executives of the party. According to him, the EC official had counted 296 votes in favor of the incumbent MP before the counting process was interrupted. He revealed that the ballot papers in the possession of the EC officials were 199, adding that the ballots were valid. So EC fails to declare, a third national vice chairman declares. And there you go. Any reactions? We'll do the final papers and wrap.
Yeah, but let me react quickly to the issue of a mix of experienced and inexperienced MPs. Look, right. I think either way, the nation will benefit from the right combination of experienced lawmakers and inexperienced or newly minted members of parliament. We need both demographics, right, as a nation to ensure a sound and productive legislative body and process. There's no doubt that new arriving MPs will bring that fresh perspective and much needed innovation to Ghana's parliament. You see, these new MPs are not just coming out of college without any experience.
Right.
A bunch of them are successful corporate professionals, executives, business owners, community activists, doctors, and so on. And they draw on this vast non-legislative experience and background to bring diverse expertise and insight, to tackle the current challenges that we face in our country. Yes, they challenge the status quo, and rightfully so, because old ways are not always the best way of doing things. And by this itself, it brings innovation into the legislative and policy making process. The fact that these newer MPs may lack knowledge of some entrenched interests that can lead to championing fresh approach to solving the nation's challenges, it doesn't mean that they will not be productive, right?
Right.
When I hire new leaders in my role today and employees in my profession, my focus is how to maintain a well-balanced group or a team that is a combination of seasoned professionals and also college graduates who come in to change the world.
Right.
They challenge the status quo. They bring fresh perspective. And a lot of the time, they are pretty savvy from a technology standpoint. And this has always been my strategy, and it will work for Ghana's parliament as well to have that mix.
Right.
Then also, if you think about experienced MPs, they bring that stability and continuity to the chamber with a tremendous wealth of proficiency, institutional knowledge, right, and expertise to the policy making and legislative process. Right. So they are well adapted navigating the intricacies of lawmaking, and I think a combination of this will help the nation a lot.
All right. We have to go, but Economy Times. Ministry of Finance, Bank of Ghana confident in economic recovery efforts, and IMF still classifying Ghana as a debt-distressed country. Your final words in some 20 seconds, Doc.
You know,
Hello? Hello, Doc? You seem to be muted. Hello? Hello, Doc? I can see you, but for some reason I can't hear you. Hello, Doc, can you hear me? Okay, I do not. Can you hear me? Hello? Okay, go ahead. I can't hear you well. That's the problem. If you can hear me, then go ahead with your thoughts. I do not know what the problem is, but I think I was going to give you 20 seconds. Unfortunately, we have to go. Doc, can you hear me? Final attempt. Can you hear me, Dr. Dogbe? All right, we don't have... Hello? It's unfortunate, Dr. Dogbe, but we'll have to sew it up here. And happy birthday to my adorable wife, Assistant Superintendent of Immigration, Dorcas Apia Bracco of the Ghana Immigration Service. Have a good one filled with God's grace and blessings. That's coming through from Kwame Jumo Ajeman. Happy birthday to Assistant Superintendent of the Immigration Service, Dorcas Apia Bracco, Ghana Immigration Service. And it's from Kwame Jumo to you. Well, we were joined by Dr. Wisdom Kofi Dogbe, a financial analyst, and this segment always brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They're offering prostate screening for free if you're a man, fertility screening for free if you're a woman. Locate them here in Accra at Spentex, opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi Kronuma Bohia, behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takra de Anaji State, Tema Committee 22, Techiman Hanswe de Siamanzama. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234-321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. We're bringing you more of the action in sports, especially the AFCON, up next.